I didn't think they'd actually do this so early. I think everyone thought they were going to wait until the end of 2024 for an event like this. But in just over a month's time we have PFL versus Bellator. Champs seize the throne. And I am absolutely stoked. Can't wait to see this clash of two organizations that now fall under the same banner. Without taking too much time, let me break down who I think is going to win each events on the prelims and on the main card, working our way up. I'll also be giving some light betting predictions, but no lines are out yet on my sportsbook, so it is all wild speculation. As a side note, before I go over my first two picks, I have to mention this card is in and obviously paid for by Saudi Arabia. Keep that in mind. The first fight of the night we have is an amateur bout. Malik Basahel, 17-2-1, versus Vinicius Pahea, 3-0. Malik has a fairly extensive amateur record, and Vinicius is pretty obviously being brought in to lose. I don't yet know how heavy-handed the Saudis are going to be in order to get wins for athletes fighting under the Saudi flag, but regardless, Vinicius is very young at 19 and Malik has trained at an okay gym in England. You're going to see Malik as at least a minus 400 favorite most likely, probably even higher, and for good reason. That's my pick. The next fight of the card is a pro featherweight bout between Abdullah Al-Khatani, 7-1, versus Edukundala Rao, 4-1. Abdullah has fought some mid-tier cans since signing with the PFL and faced some halfway decent regional fighters in Brave CF. He is the second fighter on this card representing Saudi Arabia, and his opponent is from India. Hammer this line if you see it anywhere below minus 500. Normally, I'd never recommend betting at such odds, but Abdullah is going to be at least a negative 1,000 favorite, if not negative 2,000, by the time the fights come around. India's regional scene is not close to Central Asia's standard, and Edukundala's opponents are nothing special even by Indian regional standards. Third fight at lightweight, we got the boxer Claressa Shields versus Kelsey DeSantis. It seems PFL learned their lesson against pitting Claressa against a more than one-dimensional fighter in her last outing, and are bringing up a worse fighter than last time, up from 145 to lose to Shields. Shields is going to get a quick TK over DeSantis, and PFL will continue to invest in their project. Fourth fight, we got Biagio Ali Walsh making his pro debut against Chris Morris. This is a decent step up in competition for Walsh. Morris has an alright ground game for an amateur, but realistically, Walsh is going to outclass Morris on the feet and defend takedowns from Morris until it ends with a KO from Biagio Ali Walsh. PFL will be able to keep working on their grandson of Muhammad Ali project, and hopefully one day he will fight Antonio Inoki's oldest grandchild and lose. Although I don't think he trains MMA. Anyways, another massive favorite for sure. Don't think there could be many bettable lines on this card. Bookies usually have pretty unattractive lines for PFL. And Chris Morris is apparently out of the fight, and I can't find a reason why just yet. But stepping up in his place is Emmanuel Palacio from Argentina. Emmanuel is 18 and has one pro MMA bout to his name. Now, if you look at his Tapology page, he's got a bunch of belts wrapped around him in the 144p picture provided. But if you squint, you can see one appears to be a regional amateur kickboxing belt, and the other two appear to be from a gym-run amateur Muay Thai and kickboxing belt, respectively. No, he's not some sleeper agent with an extensive kickboxing record that is going to upset Ali Walsh out of nowhere. My pick is still on Ali Walsh, and this line is going to be even more ridiculous than the one against Chris Morris would have been. Fifth fight is our first PFL versus Bellator matchup, but is not for a belt. We have Gabriel Alves Braga versus Aaron Pico. Now, these records, 12-1 Braga and 12-4 Pico, might give us closer to even odds hopefully, but I think Pico is way better. Braga is an okay striker with a decent clinch and fence work game, but to be honest, he just isn't super fast, and he does leave quite a few openings, both to get hit and to get taken down. I think Aaron is just dangerous enough on the feet to give Braga pause, and that's all Pico needs to secure a takedown and start working his game. Now, is Pico going to TKO or submit him on the ground? Or just grind out a decision with control time? I don't know, but I'm definitely picking Aaron Pico to win this fight. Sixth fight, and the start of the main card, is AJ McKee versus Clay Collard. AJ might have a tough time actually finishing Collard, but I think he's a lot faster and more skilled all around. Likely going to be a decision win for McKee, and I definitely bet on him up to -200. Moving on, the 7th fight is Thiago Santos versus Yoel Romero. This is a good matchup. While Thiago could stay at range and outpoint Yoel, he is 40 now, and I don't expect his 40 to look as good as Yoel's 46. Yoel has had a couple fights now to adjust to 205, so hopefully he won't show up with as much of a belly as he did against Nemkov, who he had moments against. I'll be picking Yoel Romero to win this fight, and you might actually be able to get him at slight favorite odds or maybe even underdog odds if we get lucky. 8th fight is Bruno Capoloza versus Vadim Nemkov. Bruno's been fighting at heavyweight way longer than Nemkov and is a confirmed drug cheat. He's also got a decent pair of wins over Ante Duiha, and like Nemkov, has a loss to Yuri Prohaska. I'm still going to pick Nemkov to hopefully grapple and possibly submit Bruno, but if this fight stays on the feet, there's a strong chance Bruno could KO or TKO Nemkov. I wouldn't bet on Nemkov anywhere over maybe a -180, just based on the risks of this fight. 9th fight for the PFL Welterweight Championship is Magomed Karamov, the reigning PFL champ, versus the Bellator champ Jason Jackson. I'm going to be backing Magomed just like I did in his last fight against Sadibou Sai. Now, Jason Jackson trains at one of the best facilities in the world with some of the best coaches, and he has some of the best sparring partners at 170 in the world: Ian Gary, Shavkat Rachmanov, Gilbert Burns, etc. And his stock is the highest it's ever been right now, after being the first person to beat Yaroslav Amosov. But with all that said, I think a mid-tier Dagestani wrestler is going to be too much for him. Oh, and if the Saudis want anyone to win, it's Magomed Karamov. Okay, now I'm just seeing that Magomed is out of this fight, and Ray Cooper III is stepping in on just a month's notice to fight Jason Jackson. Lovely, another pullout. Now, I can see a future where Cooper knocks out Jackson or manages to steal 2 rounds by outmuscling him on the ground. He is a live underdog, don't get that wrong. But on the feet, this is Jackson's game, and I think he's going to use his height and reach advantage to just outscore Cooper. Another thing to note is that this is no longer a title bout, unfortunately. It's a catchweight 182-pound bout, but to be honest, a month out and Jackson probably won't have dieted down much, so I don't think this weight necessarily favors either fighter. But Cooper has fought at 185 pounds, although he is a small 185. 10th fight is Jesus Pinedo versus Patricio Pitbull. Now, Pitbull is on a 2-fight losing streak and is 36 years old now, but I'm only really going to counter his 1-fight losing streak, since Chihiro Suzuki can consistently somehow knock out world-class competition over and over. The Sergio Pettis loss, he did look terrible. Definitely a bad idea for him to drain down to 135. But now he's coming back at 145 and facing a really tough opponent in Pinedo. Now, fighters coming out of Peru generally aren't very impressive, but he's definitely an exception, and he's on a 3-fight KO streak over 3 of the best featherweights PFL has. Now, I said Pitbull isn't washed, and I really want him to win, but I think Pinedo is a bad matchup. Pinedo has decent power and is crafty with the strikes he throws, especially in the pocket and clinch. And I mean, he's 6 inches taller than Pitbull to add on to that. I can just see a repeat of the Sergio Pettis fight, and Sergio had 3.5 inches of reach and no height advantage. Pinedo has nearly 8.5 inches of reach with a 6-inch height advantage. I really think Pitbull's either going to get outstruck at distance or catch a straight or a knee when he tries to close the gap. And to top that off, I don't think Pitbull's strong enough to take him down and work from there. I'm picking Pinedo to win, but I have to see what lines come out before I place any money on him. 11th fight is Impa Kasangane versus Johnny Eblen for the PFL Middleweight Championship. I'm not going to waste my breath here. Kasangane is good, but Johnny Epic is going to destroy him. End of. Johnny Epic will annihilate him. 12th fight of the night is Hinan Faher versus Ryan Bader for the PFL Heavyweight Championship. Hinan is the younger and much larger fighter at 6'8" and a full 260 pounds versus the 6'2" and 230 pounds of Bader at 40 years old. Probably going to get a closer line than most fights due to Ryan Bader's slight name recognition. I'm still going to take Ryan in this fight, hoping he has one last boring wrestling match left in him, but Hinan could very well KO him, and I don't know if Bader can keep a guy Hinan's size down at all. I'm going to bet on Bader, but I'm definitely going to hedge my bet with Hinan Faher by KO. Alright, Overall, based on my predictions, I have Bellator going 6-2, now 7-1, I guess, against the PFL and winning this card. But as it's under the same banner now, the PFL wins no matter what. Let me know what you guys think and which of the organizations is going to have the most wins out of the 8 matches.